Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so happy to be joining you again today on the WOW YouTube channel. I have a fun birthday card to share with you guys today. I will also share this on the blog and we'll make sure to link that below so you can check that out there as well. I'm starting out by stamping some of the Moonman images from the reverse confetti stamp set onto Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock in Memento Tuxedo black ink. I will leave the stamps in my MISTI because I do want an embossed outline. Now, embossing doesn't do well with alcohol markers. It's bad for your alcohol markers if you color over embossed lines. Repeatedly. If you just pass over it really quickly, it shouldn't make much of a difference. But if you color over a line repeatedly, or if you touch the line repeatedly with the alcohol marker, the alcohol in the markers will eat away at the embossing powder, and that will mean that the embossing will lose its shine. So that's not great. I always emboss my outlines with clear gloss, so I do want that glossy finish. And if that just gets rubbed away, there's no point in embossing anyway. And it's also bad for your markers because while it eats away at the embossing powder, it kind of melts into the marker and the marker nib might get ruined and clogged with the embossing. So you don't want to emboss your outlines before you color your images with alcohol markers, but I am addicted to those glossy outlines. So I leave the stamps in my MISTI after stamping them once with alcohol marker friendly ink. And then I just leave the images on the sheet as so I don't cut them out, is what I want to say. And I just put the sheet back into my MISTI in that same corner in the same position that I had it in the first place. And then I can just stamp them again with an ink that I can emboss with. And this has just changed my life. I color a lot more with my alcohol markers now because I can do that glossy outline. So once I've colored all of these images, I kept the coloring really simple. I can just do what I explained before. I just put the sheet back into that same corner of my MISTI. I can then stamp the images once again in that same exact spot with Versafine Onyx black ink. This is a pigment ink, so it's a really crisp black and it stamps gorgeous every time. And you can also emboss with this, which is the whole point. So then I can just take that out of my MISTI, sprinkle on my WOW Clear Gloss Super Fine Embossing Powder, and that will give me that outline look that I'm going for. So all that's left to do is heat set these images now. I will use the WOW Dual Speed Heat tool on the second setting because that's what WOW recommends you use, and it works wonders at melting that embossing powder quickly and without much warping to your paper. Then I can work on my background. So I colored this strip of white cardstock. You can just use colored cardstock from the get-go, but I like to color my own. Most of this will be covered up, and I just don't have that much colored cardstock. So I quickly colored it with an ink cube, but because I colored it with an ink cube, I didn't want that ink to transfer onto my WOW embossing pad. So I used just an ink blending tool to pounce the embossing ink onto that blue strip of cardstock, and you can see that the blending tool got colored in the end, so I'm really happy I used the blending tool and didn't go straight in with the ink pad. And then I can cover this with this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous embossing powder. This is the Midnight embossing powder. It is super dark navy mixed in with some black, I think. There are some speckles of white maybe and a lot of gold in there. So it really looks like a midnight sky and it's so stunning. I'm really, really happy I have this in my stash now. It is one of my favorite WOW embossing powders of all time. Now this is quite opaque, so you don't have to use colored cardstock as your base for this, but whenever I do this and I want a really solid colored background, I just make sure I work on colored cardstock from the get-go. So if there's a place I miss or a spot I miss with just adding the ink, properly, then I can make sure that it's not stark white that's showing through. There's at least some color showing through. So I die cut a strip from that, and I used the Slimline banners from Pinkfresh Studio for that. And I laid it on my card like I wanted it to, so I knew where to place my sentiment. This is from that same Moonman stamp set by Reverse Confetti. They always have some punny sentiments in their sets, so I love to use those. I stamped that in Versafine Onyx Black again and embossed it as well with WOW Clear Gloss Superfine Embossing Powder. And once that's stamped and embossed, I can adhere that banner, that space banner, galaxy banner, on top of my card with some foam tape so it's propped up and dimensional. You know, I love my dimension, so this worked out beautifully. I fussy cut out all the images, and then I'm cutting just some foam tape to size to fit behind these images so I can give those some dimension as well. And I'm just arranging them on that banner before pulling off the release paper and adhering them down. I really like how the layout turned out for this one. I love to just include a really small background, or not a full background at least, and make sure that it's shaped in some interesting way, and that always gives a fun, interesting and new layout. Now I did want to add more sparkle to this, and first I added some gold gems because there's also gold embossing powder in that midnight sky. But I switched them out for silver gems because those stood out a little bit more against that background. And I just adhered them with Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. If you know me, you know I love to make my matching envelopes, so I took a blue that matched the spaceman suit, and I just folded an A2 sized envelope out of that with We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. I glued that together with the Barely Art Precision Craft glue, and then I can stamp that Moonman right on top of my envelope again. Once again, I am using the WOW Ultra Slow Drying Clear Embossing ink for this. Because I do want to emboss it, I want to bring in some of the elements that are on my card, and I just want to repeat those on the envelope. So the elements I chose to repeat were that Moonman image and also the embossing powder. I am just going to use it for the line art, and it's not super ideal for the line art just because the gold in there is ultra high embossing powder, so the powder is thicker, so it doesn't stick to super thin outlines, but it worked out pretty well. There were some thinner, there were some finer powder in there as well of the gold, so you still get that galaxy effect in that outline, and I really love how that turned out. So this is it. This is my final project. I am so happy with this birthday card. I always need birthday cards, and I'm always running out of them for some reason. So I really enjoyed using these Moonmen and that stunning midnight embossing powder. I am pretty sure this is part of a trio, so I'll make sure to link that below instead of the embossing powder, so don't be confused if you look at the product list. I hope you liked the card, and I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. You can also subscribe to the WOW Embossing YouTube channel for more WOW inspiration, or you can subscribe to mine as well. That will be linked on top of this video as well. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.